Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to do a quick update on the Acura Legend project here. So a lot of this has been about tearing things down and trying to discover where the focus points of our work are going to be. Had a huge oil leak, multiple oil leaks as you would imagine for a 30-year-old car. If you don't keep up with replacing seals, eventually they will seep and eventually that will lead to a leak. So it's been a lot of tracking that down. We're focusing on the mechanical aspects of the Acura Legend before we dive into the cosmetics, as you would imagine. It's all about how do we get this car to a point where it's reliable, drivable, and not going to cost us further money down the line by doing repairs. So there's a lot of while you're in there type of moments going on. And a good example of that is I'm tearing down the engine and I find that the valve cover gaskets are definitely leaking. And from the signs of it, they're the original OEM valve cover gaskets, and all around it is just blown out seals like intake manifold IAT seal, intake air temperature seal, PVC positive crankcase ventilation valve seals. And so there's a lot of oops, well, we can't go that much further because we got to solve these problems before we button everything back up. And it's easier to get to those replacement areas while you're doing other things. So that's been what's taking so long. In this video, I'm just going to go quickly over what we're doing right now. So rebuilding the ABS pump, valve cover gaskets, transmission mount, and to get to all of those things, you end up having to take most of the car apart to do that. So that's where we're at right now. Here's a little video piecing everything together, showing you what's going on, where we're at with it. The plans from this point forward: clean up everything. I've gone through pretty much this whole bottle of Simple Green, just cleaning up things as I'm in there. So as you imagine, 30-year-old seals blow out and you just get oil everywhere. You've got to clean all that up. I mean, there's no sense in ignoring that. We got to take care of that. So it's looking really good. That's a good sign. Most of this stuff at this point has been taken care of that I want to take care of. Waiting for a couple items to come in through the mail, a couple belts, a couple seals, etc. But this project is coming along a lot better than what I envisioned. So hopefully that gives you confidence working on your project as we go into the new year about what you can do to tackle on pretty low budget. At the end, we'll sum everything up and we'll share how much that costs. But just know that these projects, although daunting and time consuming, can be done at a low cost and can have a nice return on your investment. You can drive this car reliably and confident that you're not going to get stuck on the side of the road. You're not going to have a huge oil leak that runs down your exhaust manifold and cause smells, smoke, etc. So I'm sure we haven't found everything. As with any car, you fix stuff, you drive down the road, you find more stuff, but that's okay. So we'll just we'll say we're getting there, and we'll continue to move along, and we'll continue to get everything resolved on this car until it becomes a nice, reliable, good example of a 92 Acura Legend coupe. So enjoy the next couple video clips, and let's get back to it. things that the previous owner noted was a weird vibration. And I observed this as well as I was driving the car for the first time. Now, one of the things that I noticed about it is that it happened at a really weird low RPM. And that low RPM, I later found out, was whether it was in drive or whether it was in park or whether it was in neutral. So initially I thought, well, that must be a mount, and yes, it is. This is the rear transmission mount, or the only transmission mount on the automatic transmission, and as you can see, it's not even attached anymore. So you can move this completely out of its original space and completely detached on this end and only holding on by a very sliver here. So I wanted to show people one of the problems with working on a 30-year-old car. And one of those problems is sourcing parts. So we were actually able to find one in the aftermarket space for this car. But to get to it, you have to remove the catalytic converter, which is not easy on a 30-year-old car, whether it was in the Northeast or in Texas. But this is what you're looking at. So you have to remove catalytic converter. You have to remove the heat shield, as you can see here. It's been partially removed, and you have to gain access to this area. Access to this area is a little bit difficult. So that's one problem that we've found on this Acura Legend. We have broken transmission mount, but also we have a broken engine mount. And it's a situation of which came first, the chicken or the egg. But there's two engine mounts, and I can't really show you because I don't have the light. But take a look at the engine right here. Right in the front, you have a engine mount here and an engine mount here that bolt directly to the subframe. Now the one on this side is leaking a fluid. These are a fluid-filled engine mount, both of these. There's two more about midway back in the engine bay. Those are solid mounts, or not solid mounts, but they have rubber mounts that are solid, not filled with fluid. This one needs to be replaced, and we're actually going to replace both. The two in the middle are interestingly okay. The one in the back is the transmission. So this setup has one in the back for the transmission, two in the middle, and two in the front. We're going to replace the two in the front because they're old, they're leaking. We were able to source replacements. Manual transmission cars have a different mount for the transmission in the back, and those are easily sourced. So what I would say is that if you have an automatic, you're going to have a hard time finding the right transmission mount. What we're able to do is source a new one, but also you could polyfill this. What you could do is you could place it back into its form. Less than ideal because this one's severely broken. I would say it's more for cracked ones, but because this one's so broken, it's just better to replace it. We'll start with new. So, step one, rip your catalytic converter out. And it's a big one. It's right here. Look at this. This thing is, I would say, 30 inches long, 32 inches long, because that's countertop height, and it's almost reaching the countertop. So it's either about 30, 32 inches. That has to come out. Then you can remove a bunch of heat shield. It's pretty easy from there. You're able to get that mount out, and then installation is reverse. So that's just one step on this car about restoring it. We're working on the mechanical side first, and then we're going to be working on some engine stuff. But we needed to solve that vibration, and I think we found it. So here we have two transmission bushings for the Acura Legend. This is the OEM one that we just took out. As you can see, this is probably the primary reason why there's so much vibration. And I felt this vibration underneath the driver's seat at about 1500 RPM. This one is not an OEM bushing, but instead an aftermarket one that I got from a company out in California. They luckily are probably the only people still manufacturing this. But what I've noticed is that there's a lot of flex in this. I can literally go like this, and I can move the bushing quite a bit. And to me, that seems like maybe a theory as to why
the Acura Legend shifts so hard between the 1-2 shift. As we know, it's pretty harsh. So I have a theory. Let's polyfill it with urethane. This is what they call window or auto glass adhesive, but it's a rubber. It hardens to a rubber-like consistency and has a 63A shore hardness, which is pretty darn close to what the factory bushing is going to be. Its factory bushings are anywhere from 50A to about 70A, and then from 70A onwards, it's more like race applications or performance applications. So for our purposes, I think it's going to be just fine, but I'll put a graph up to what I'm talking about right now. What we're going to do is fill this. All these little gaps right here are going to be filled. We're going to see if that makes a difference with the Acura Legend shifting performance. And I mean, it won't probably cure the problem, but I have a theory is that this is probably causing some of the harshness in the shifting. And if we can firm that up a little bit by closing the gaps here, why not give it a shot? And if anything, it's going to increase the longevity of the bushing itself, because it won't turn into like this really soon. Now, mind you, this held on for, who knows, 20 years, 25 years before it fell apart. So let's give it a shot. Okay, so what I've done so far is I've taken 120 grit sandpaper and just kind of scratched up the surfaces to make that adhesion a little bit better. Then I've taken some cleaning mineral spirits to break down all the oils that are here. And now I'm letting it dry a little bit. We're getting everything prepped for the urethane application. So this is 3M Auto Glass Urethane Windshield Adhesive. And like I said, this hardens to a 63A hardness, which is pretty close to, if not spot on, to automotive bushing applications for OEM. So we're going to fill this in right here, and we're going to let it dry fully overnight before we go and install it. The key here is that we want to make sure that the opening for the pass-through screw is going to be able to fit in there, and that all of this on both sides is able to be filled. And I've got some gloves on, as you can see. This right here, this 3M product costs about $15 from Amazon. This bushing right here was about $73 online. So what does that make it? About $88 total to do this if you're interested in it. And we'll see what the final application looks like when we're done. Okay, and here's the finished product. As you can see, it basically is just like frosting a cake, and you kind of have to make it look good. The biggest issue I think I had with this, besides using the gun here, you know, it's very difficult to squeeze that out, was making sure there was no air bubbles in the poly. I mean, air bubbles are just going to create an issue for you. So as you can see here, there's basically a smooth surface all the way around. Maybe put in the light a little bit for you. Smooth surface all the way around, completely full of the sealant or the polymer. And even though it looks a little janky from the camera, it doesn't actually look that bad in person. You're just getting some of the highlights and the swirls. But basically, it's going to smooth out. And what I found was the easiest way to smooth it out was to use a glove. Just take the glove, change a glove after you do one side, do the other side. So pretty simple process. We'll let it harden overnight and see how it works. Obviously, okay, and here's the finished product after sitting overnight. It's definitely firmer, but still has some pliability to it. Also, you know, this hardness right in here feels really good. On the bottom, it's a little bit firmer. On the top, it's got a little bit of flexibility to it. I think that this is going to work well to stiffen this up a little bit. As you can see, it still moves, but it doesn't like flex this way, or flex like this. which is where my major concern was, is that the reason why the original bushing probably ripped at its contact points here and here is because it had forces acting on it to rotate it, and so this will likely stop that from happening, and maybe it'll increase some of the comfort with the shifting, and it won't be as hard. We'll see. But now I'm going to install this. There's really not much I can show you underneath the car, so you'll just have to take my word. It's basically just bolting this up, putting a through bolt here, and then attaching it to the transmission. So not a lot of work necessarily to do this, and just because the angle is really bad, I won't be able to show.